Minister of Employment and Labour, Thulas Nxesi, held a briefing on Sunday to provide directions to employers and employees on lockdown level 4's back-to-work readiness, as over 1 million people are expected to return to work this week. Here's more from the briefing.
Assessment review must be undertaken to adapt the provisions of the direction to the specific requirements of the individual workplaces. The direction in no way reduces the existing obligations on employers in terms of the Occupational Health and Safety Act of 1993. The direction is based on infection transmission prevention and specific occupational hygiene practices that focus on the need for employers to implement measures to mitigate or eliminate the transmission of the virus in the workplace. Employers must take measures to protect the health and safety of everyone in their workplace. This includes employees of contractors, self-employed persons, and volunteers. The process starts with a risk assessment in the workplace and a clear plan to implement the measures contained in the direction. Every employer must do the following: notify workers of the contents of the direction and how it will be implemented. They must inform employees that if they have COVID-19 symptoms, they must not be at work and grant paid sick leave or apply for COVID-19 TERS benefits. The employer must appoint a manager from within the existing structure to address the concerns of the employees and workplace representatives. They must take measures to minimize contact between the workers and the public to prevent the transmission. They must minimize the number of the workers in the workplace at any time through shift or working arrangements to achieve social distancing. The employer must provide employees with information concerning COVID-19 and how to prevent its transmission. They must report any diagnosis of COVID-19 at work to the Department of Health and the Department of Employment and Labour, investigate the cause, and take appropriate measures. It is a contravention not to do so as an employer. They must support any contact tracing measures initiated by the Department of Health. With regard to social distancing, workplaces must be arranged to ensure a minimum of 1.5 meters between workers. If this is not practicable, physical barriers must be erected and workers must be supplied free of charge with the appropriate personal protective equipment, the PPEs. Social distancing must be implemented in all common areas in and around the workplace to prevent crowding, including working spaces, canteens, meeting rooms, etc. In relation to screening, employers must screen workers for symptoms of COVID-19 at the time that they report for work, namely fever, cough, sore throat, redness of eyes or shortness of breath or difficulty in breathing, body aches, loss of smell or loss of taste, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, fatigue, and weakness or tiredness. Workers should immediately inform the employer if they experience any symptoms whilst at work. Not doing so is a contravention of the Occupational Health and Safety Act by the worker. More importantly, the worker put themselves and their own co-workers at risk. So you can see we're talking about responsibilities and obligations from both sides of the employer and the employee. Workers with symptoms must be placed in isolation and arrangements made for their safety or for their safe transport for a medical examination or for self-isolation. Shops and other workplaces to which the public have access must screen all persons entering the workplace for symptoms. In relation to sanitizers and disinfectants, employers must do the following: provide sufficient quantities of hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol content. Ensure that work surfaces, equipment, and common areas such as toilets, door handles, and shared equipment are regularly cleaned and disinfected, and they also provide adequate facilities for hand washing with soap and clean water and sufficient paper towels. On masks, workers must wear masks at work. Employers must require members of the public entering the workplace to wear masks. Employers must provide each employee free of charge with at least 2 cloth masks to wear whilst at work or commuting. They must be suitable for washing and drying masks. Ultimately, the employer remains responsible for maintenance and upkeep of the PPEs.